All right, Heavenly Father, we lift up our beloved dad to you in this sacred time. You have walked with him through every season of his life, and now we ask that you surround him with your peace, your comfort, and your unending love. Ease his pain, quiet his spirit, and let him feel your nearness in every breath. Give us, his family, the strength to walk this journey with grace, to honor him with our presence, and to trust that you hold him tenderly in your hands. We thank you for the gift of his life, for all the love he has given, and for the ways he has shaped us. When the time comes, welcome him gently into your eternal rest. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. He definitely feels it. He definitely has made comments about it today, just about how bad he's feeling and that he hasn't felt this bad at all up until this point. And obviously he's got to know that he's not getting better. And Mom and him were talking last night about that. And she said, well, what if you're not going to get better? Because he kept talking about, well, maybe getting better. And she put the question to him and she said, is that just something that you're afraid to talk about? And he said, yeah, a little bit, because that means death. And she said, well, it's going to happen probably pretty soon, and I'm not going to be far behind you, she said. So she said it's going to happen to all of us, but the state that he's in right now, it's obvious that it's not going to be that long.
We come into episode 3 with a clip from our last recording session of last year, September 19th, 2025. A prayer spoken by my sister Dolly for our beloved Da, who was on hospice at the time of that recording and who was in his last week of life here in the physical world. We knew we were close. We knew he was rapidly declining. We knew our time with him was limited. But what we did not know was just how impactful his death would be in our lives, us 4 daughters here today. Da was a massive presence and anchor for us. And despite knowing his death was imminent, the actual loss has left a void equally massive. We are stumbling. We are unsteady. We feel untethered and so very sad. We navigated the dying process at his bedside and after his death as we stayed with his body for several hours. We went through the frenetic funeral planning, the burial, and the wake. And with trepidation and uncertainty, we stumbled through Thanksgiving and Christmas, holding on to the rituals and favorites of Da's with as much grit and grace as we could muster. And we welcomed this new year, 2026, as the first year without Da. We took a much-needed break from our podcast to honor our grief, to lean into and support our Ma, a widow after 60 years of marriage, and to allow for the inevitable unraveling that accompanies the loss of this magnitude. We considered whether we would even be able to continue here. And a big part of our return is because of our Da and his pride, his excitement and encouragement of this endeavor, to see his daughters connecting, sharing our stories, holding space for one another, and daring to do something for the greater good. He was so delighted to watch our first 2 episodes, and each episode from here forward is to honor him and the legacy and lessons he leaves in us. And so with that, we're going to pick up. I'm just going to give a little bit of insight. Our last recording on September 19th was interrupted, and Dolly had to leave the recording to go downstairs as she was Da's primary caretaker while he was on hospice. And before we get further into this episode, we want to give advance notice that we will be talking about the active dying process with our Da, and we just want any listeners to be aware of that moving forward. So with that, Dolly, if you're comfortable just sharing from that last recording session to when he actually died was, about 5 days? So if you just want to talk us through the last 2 days before we lost Da.
Okay. Well, what happened basically was that we could see that he was declining, that he was becoming a lot more weak. We haven't left the house in weeks because he just wasn't strong enough anymore. But still, we thought that we had a couple months with him at least. I mean, we still thought that he was doing well enough that he would be with us for quite a bit longer. But that Monday came and we got the hospital bed put into his bedroom. And then actually on Monday, we moved the hospital bed back out to the living room just so that he could be in the middle of our space that we used on a daily basis so that he can be surrounded by all of us and our support and our love. Um, and that day, he sat on the couch talking to our brother Brendan for quite a while. He was wide awake and alert and um, just had a conversation with all of us throughout that afternoon. And then that evening, we put him into the hospital bed and he fell asleep. And that was the last time that he was aware of what was going on, that he was actively conscious and with us. And as I went through that night, about 4 in the morning, I slept on the floor out by his bed. And about 4 in the morning, his breathing changed dramatically. In fact, Megan said that when she came over and she was outside the house that morning, she could hear him breathing because it became a lot louder. There were a lot of secretions in his chest and his throat that were coming out. And he just definitely, there was some changes taking place. And that's when everybody started coming to the house to surround him because we knew that something major was happening and we weren't sure what it was yet. We weren't sure that he was I mean, no one felt that he was going to pass away that day. We just knew that he wasn't doing well. And that's when everybody else came to the house and just surrounded him with our love and our presence.
I had been over there on Monday when our brother was there, and Da was, really actively engaging in conversation with him. Um, he was very with it mentally, verbally. It was like a normal conversation. I could tell he was really tired though. We were waiting just to get the bed set up so that we could get him in bed because we knew he was exhausted. So when I left that evening, I left with uncertainty because I just, I don't know if I just had a gut instinct, but I thought I wasn't sure if he would make it to the morning. Like that was my vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So first thing in the morning, as you all know, I'm a morning person. Um, I went over to the house and I remember walking up to the door and I heard the sound that I had never heard before. It was completely unfamiliar to me, but I knew what it was. And I knew it was Da, and I knew it was his breathing. And I could hear it outside the door when I was out on the porch. And I was scared. I mean, I'll be honest about that. I was scared by the sound. I wasn't sure. It's kind of like I knew what was gonna happen. I knew what was coming, and I wasn't sure my ability to handle it, even down to the breathing. I wasn't sure if I would be able to handle that sound. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it started in the middle of the night, it completely freaked me out.
yeah, it was scary. And,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dolly, you came to the door when I knocked, and we noticed that he wasn't in a good place, that we needed to clean him up, that we needed to do what we could to make him more comfortable because the breathing sounded so uncomfortable. And so we were just,
Mm-hmm.
kind of calling the hospice nurse, wondering what direction do we go here. And but I knew that we didn't have a lot of time left with him at that
Right.
point.
What was mom doing at this time? Was she awake when you were there, Meg? Did she come out? Because I was in Seattle at this time. I think you all three were in Oregon, but I'm just trying to get some insight
Yeah.
what mom's presence, how she was navigating it.
Well, mom woke up shortly after May got there, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was completely freaked out by his breathing too. she was very upset, and I think it just really scared her.
It became a little bit of a chaotic time with her trying to figure out trying to call hospice, and her shock at his condition, because she's familiar with death and what the end looks like. And I think, you know, to go to bed with him in one state and then to wake up to what she woke up to was a real reality check.
Yeah, I remember calling Dolly, you video called me
Mm-hmm.
that Monday before because we would say a prayer together every night. And it was the first time in months that he did not say the prayer with us. I mean, I could tell his body was reacting, his hands were reacting. But again, like as you say, there was no inclination that this would be his last night, because I was planning on traveling down on Thursday and I was certain that he would be alive
Mm-hmm.
when, I mean, that's how, otherwise I would have absolutely been on the road. It was such a turn in such a short amount of time. And in retrospect, I look back thinking how strong Da presented, even in his kind of frail physical state, like still getting up and going from the bed to the couch, and all of these different YouTube videos or however much information you can talk about the last couple months or weeks or days or hours of death. Nothing had prepared us that you would be, conscious and talking on one day and then taking your last breath
Yeah.
the next. I think we all really felt like we at least had a couple days. Yeah. Yeah. So Mo, when did you get over there?
Sometime in the morning, prior to the hospice nurse coming over, which was around 11 or
Mm.
so, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And she came over and kind of did her assessment. She was there for about 45 minutes or so, cleaned him up a little bit. I don't really remember the gist of the conversation or if she expressed any timeline, or I don't recall that. I remember Aunt Janet being on her way, and I seem to have a better recollection as the day went on, kind of the sequence of events. But I don't recall what the hospice nurse said. But again, we thought that we still had time, that she was just there doing a hospice visit, and, talked about keeping him comfortable with medications and things like that had already kind of been in place. So it was just kind of observing. And I will say, in terms of his breathing, I think I don't know if this is the time to mention it, but Dolly and I had done hospice care for my former mother-in-law. And as the day unfolded, I could kind of see parallels in terms of the changes with Da and how it was with my mother-in-law. So in a way, I don't know if I could ever say it prepared me, but I was just familiar with, oh yeah, I remember when, she did that, or when her breathing changed, or when she stopped eating, or, those kinds of things. I was definitely on a faster track with his passing, but all the breathing changes and things like that, there were some similarities. Don't you think, Dolly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he hadn't eaten for a couple days, and he wasn't able to drink out of a straw. He wasn't able to swallow like he had been before.
Mm-hmm.
And that all happened within about 72 hours of him passing away. So
Yeah.
that all was very familiar from what happened with Darlene.
Yeah. And I think, Bridget, you had shared videos from hospice nurse on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I, had watched several of those as well, just, what to expect and the different aspects of hospice care and passing and changes in the body and all those kinds of things. So I think just having some information, and having kind of, watch some of those videos. Didn't really make it any easier because, when it's your own parent, it's very different. I remember, them saying that this is what happens and this is where dad is in that transition. I remember mom at some point must have called Aunt Janet, and she lives in Portland. And so she drove down, and I just remember the timing of her arrival, and it's like he almost hung on to see his sister. She got there at 12:30,
12:30, and he
Yeah.
passed away at 1:03.
Yeah.
and literally at 12:50, I remember that moment when his breathing really shifted. There was a
Mhm.
significant change at about 10 to 1. And that's when we were, around his bed, and we were kind of looking at the time and listening to him breathe, and things just really slowing down. And yeah, it's like he waited for her to get there, which was really special, I think. Yeah, and it was, again, the breathing, although I think with dad's breathing, it just really slowed down until it was just like a light tapping, kind of a light patter on his chest.
And Bridget, were you
Yeah.
on the phone that whole time? Weren't you on a video call?
Yeah, so I had taken Murphy out to the back area to go to the bathroom, and I was on the phone with Mo at the time, and I said, well, call me with any updates. Because again, I mean, his breathing had changed, and I still wasn't wrapping my mind around the fact that he was going to die that day. I just wasn't there. But I was still out in that back kind of grassy knoll area. I'd hung up with Mo, and probably like 5-6 minutes passed, and she called me back. And it was just such certainty. She said, we think this is it. I'm just going to hold the phone so you can be here. And Mo, I'm so, so grateful that you called me. And I yelled through the window because our apartment window was open. I yelled at my son, Khalil. I said, Khalil, come outside, come say goodbye to Papa. And immediately he came running out and was right by my side. And I mean, we were just in this kind of public grassy knoll area. He just kind of put his arms around me. And Aunt Janet said, do you all want to pray the Hail Mary? And we all started praying the Hail Mary. And by the end of that prayer, he was gone. Yeah, it just, it was the profoundly beautiful. And I could say, even being in a public space outside, there was nothing else but what was going on in that moment. And I remember Megan there, and mom's presence, just kind of coaching him, kind of talking to him. And when you talk about his breathing and the pitter patter and watching the clock, we've talked about this. It sounds like a delivery room. It really was kind of this labor of love that we were all participating in with Da. And what I found, I think the vision that sticks with me the most, other than just gazing at Da and feeling the energy of that room within me, was seeing, it says, Dolly, you had gone and taken a shower. And having been Da's primary caretaker, I don't think anything is accidental. I don't think anything, I think Da's death was exactly how he wanted it to be. And maybe knowing that, having lost Rory, that, I don't know, I'm not trying to put a meaning into what Da was thinking, but the most beautiful vision I have is you coming out of the shower and your head was wrapped in a towel, and you made a beeline right for Da's forehead, and you just leaned over and kissed him like it was the most normal, like you knew. I mean, no one said anything like he's gone, or it was, you knew, and you went straight to your father. And that visual, it was just such a knowing. I just keep thinking of the knowing and communion that was unfolding in that room in that time, that Da was integrated and with us all through every second of it. It just, yeah.
Yeah, it's all I could do. I was devastated that I missed his last breath, but it was all I could do was just to go and just fling myself on him, basically, and give him a kiss.
Yeah.
And tell him that I loved him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, like, I'm just speaking, I think in that moment and even now and in moments in between, I felt like I don't know how you've interpreted that moment, but I think it would have been difficult maybe if you would have been there for Da and not for Rory. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it's a linear shared experience of
Right.
not comparing but holding space for these two men in your lives that you love so dearly.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. It might have been too much if I'd been there when he took his last breath, not there with Rory.
After Da passed, I'm going to send this to Moe because at some point I had to get off of the phone, even though that was hard. I really did not want to. But Mo, if you could talk to us about what happened immediately following Da's death and how he was able to stay in the home for as long as he did.
Well, when the hospice nurse was there in the morning, someone I think did ask, or maybe she just brought it up, when someone passes away at home and they've been in hospice care, do they leave the home right away? Are there options? In my mind, the only experience I had to compare it with was when I did hospice care with Dolly with my former mother-in-law. Literally within an hour after she passed, people from the
Funeral home.
funeral home came and picked her up within an hour. So I just kind of thought that was typical. And the hospice nurse mentioned that families had chosen to keep their loved ones at home, sometimes even up to 2 or 3 days. And I was kind of, surprised to hear that. I didn't know that there was an option. I knew that we likely weren't going to do that, but we definitely felt that, and this was at just after 1 in the afternoon, that having him remain in the home would give people, family, mom and dad's best friends, a couple that we've known. We all grew up with their kids, came over, and it was really a very amazing day. And it wasn't anything scary, or at least for me, it wasn't. And I don't think it was for anyone. He looked like he was sleeping. And I think sometimes as, kids growing up, and I think of when Dolly and I stayed at our grandmother's home up in Newburgh. She lived in an apartment upstairs in a funeral home. And I think as kids, you have that notion of, oh, it's so scary. And when someone passes away, it's like, how are they going to look? Is it going to be traumatic? And it was an amazing opportunity for everyone to spend time with him, to sit on his bed, to hold his hand. We had all kinds of rosaries there. And I just wanted to add something in regards to our youngest brother. What was one of the two most impactful aspects of that day was watching how he explained Daw's passing to his three kids. And it just seemed like the words just flowed so easily out of his mouth. And he was just very kind of matter of fact about it. And I think because he was so calm in how he explained it, it was calming for his kids. And I just thought that was a really beautiful aspect of that day, to watch how they interacted with him and spent time with dad. So I think it was really wonderful to have him there at home until early evening.
I agree. It was really nice to have our youngest brother there with his whole family to say goodbye to Da. And then we have another brother that lives in Portland, and he and his wife were able to come down and spend some time with Da. And like Mo said, some of his best friends from years and years and years came over and spent some time with him. So it was just a really, like Moe said, it wasn't scary at all. It wasn't strange. It felt really normal, and it felt really comfortable, and it felt really holy. Just having that time to usher him into heaven together as a family was really special. Meg, do you want to add on to that?
Well, I would say the word that resonates the most with me would be holy. It felt like very much a sacred space. It was beautiful, which you don't hear often, alongside the word death, but it was beautiful. One thing that I had always thought in my mind was that we have to do, we have to send Da off with an Irish toast. We have to. He's the patriarch of the O'Donnell clan. So I went into the kitchen and got his bottle of Jameson, and we all said that really famous Irish toast: May the road rise to meet you, the wind be always at your back, may the sun shine warm upon your face, the rain fall softly
Thanks.
upon your fields, and until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. And I
Palm of
put a
his
little
hand.
Jameson in
Yeah.
his mouth. And Keenan and we joined in. My son and I joined in with a little bit of Jameson. But it's like these
Did mom too?
rituals that just, yes, mom did too. Yeah. So it was these rituals that we have in our family that made it just so special and um, such a unique day. The people who were meant to be there were there, in my opinion. And like you said, just guiding dad and being with him as he entered the next, where his soul is free. So yeah, it was very beautiful.
And then the mortuary, the morgue, they came to get him that evening. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
About 8:30, I think.
Yeah. It was about
Yeah.
8:30. They came and they were really wonderful people. A gentleman and a woman that came, and they were very caring and compassionate and um wrapped him up
Respectful.
and respectful. Yeah.
That's right. Because Mo, you called me again during that time. And it's so, when you speak to the sacredness and the holy atmosphere was so palpable that even in those calls, it was like I was transported into a totally different space, time, whatever. I could feel it. It was palpable when those two came in and prayed and wrapped him basically like in a shroud.
Mm-hmm.
It was even the linens that they put on him. It was such a beautiful ritual of that. I do recall watching. Uh, Mom was at the door as they kind of wheeled him out. Just that last moment. So much hits you, I think, as I don't know, as a daughter, as a wife, for mom, as a caretaker, to see your dad taken out of, the only thing he wanted was to be in his home when he
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
died.
Yeah.
And to know, that he was given that gift, and also just the hollow feeling that is left when you see a loved one carried off from the home that they will never return to. I mean, there was
Mm-hmm.
also a deep emptiness that was pretty palpable in that moment too, but not much time to stay in that emptiness because, as you know, Dolly, like then the funeral planning
Mm-hmm.
was, starting the very next day. And
Yeah.
thankfully mom had prepared. I mean, I remember for weeks beforehand going over readings, and his funeral was in a Catholic church. There was a Catholic mass. We had bishops and priests, and, planning all of that was pretty intensive. And I'm also grateful that mom had pre-planned with Da some of these things, and just as a side note for families that may not have experience, I think even us talking about him dying and saying the word death has gotten a little bit more comfortable for me. I used to even just hesitate to say the word. And I think as a culture, it's a gift to just talk about it. It's part of the reason why we're doing this, right? Like just to to talk about it because our experience was so impactful in a really profoundly positive way. And even though the grief process has been incredibly, insanely difficult, to have these memories to look back on. I don't know. Do we want to speak to the Mass and everyone that was there? Does anyone want to talk about Papa's pallbearers and how involved we all were?
So I can speak about the pallbearers because I think it was really awesome. Mom had decided to have the oldest grandsons of all of us siblings, including the 4 of us girls and our 4 brothers. So the pallbearers were the 6 oldest grandsons. And I think that was really, at least, well, we all had a son as a pallbearer, but, and I know when I say this, I speak, probably for you all too, about how impactful it was for the grandsons that did this. And, with Riley, he was really honored and moved and just honored, that he was asked to do that. To see those boys walking alongside, the casket and then the burial site, the burial at the cemetery. Watch, and it's kind of a rugged. It's a Catholic cemetery, but it's not extremely manicured. It's very simple, but it's beautiful. It's in the woods. It's up in the hills of Eugene, but it can be a little challenging if you have mobility issues, or for them, they were, having to carry this casket, and it was, very uneven ground, and you really have to be careful, when you're walking in the cemetery. But it was beautiful. The video I took of them walking down the hill, and it was just a real treasure to see these young men, their finest attire, and honoring Dad with so much, their papa with so much respect. That was their papa.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. One of my favorites. Memories.
And I think also the day before the service, how, Mom had expressed wanting to see Daw one, last time, like, just in private at the funeral home the day before his service. And I think, Meg, you were instrumental in picking out his outfit, how he was to be dressed, and we all kind of added little things to that. But that was a really special time too. The 4 of us girls with Mom, getting to see Dad. Yeah.
Well, I thought one thing that was so neat is that we all added our little touches to Da when he was in his casket, and,
Mm-hmm.
like a little pin, a little shamrock, a little tie. Anyways, by the end of so let me backtrack a second to Mass, to a Catholic Mass. They'll have the casket open for viewing for people who choose to before the Mass. And so his casket was open. Well, by the end of it, all of the grandkids too had chosen things that they wanted to put in with Papa as well. So that thing was damn near full of
Yeah.
trinkets, mementos,
Yes.
memories,
Yeah.
something from almost every single family member wanted to include something for Papa. And that was just so
Yeah.
heartwarming.
Yes.
I thought it was so neat that Mom wanted to put their wedding cake topper in his casket, something that they kept with him for 60 years.
Yeah.
That was really touching. Yeah.
I didn't even know that until just a few days ago that she
Yeah.
had put that.
Yeah. She did.
And then we had a wake and
Yes, we
got
did.
batshit drunk. It's a proper Irish send off. Lots of Guinness, lots of Jameson, lots of stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was
Your
wonderful.
kids, Dolly, your kids
Oh, yeah.
singing this
The
song called The
video.
Old Man.
Yeah.
It's an Irish song that her sons sang on the guitar, and I mean, lots of tears too. Lots of tears. Just
Yes.
And the video that Brendan made.
Yes, our brother Brendan made 2 really lengthy videos that all of us kids had been able to send photos and for Da to have not only all of his kids walk with him down, during the mass alongside his casket to present him, to have just how it all came together with all but 2 grandkids, 20 plus from all over the country coming back together. And his funeral was full. I mean, it was definitely, I mean, not that that's a testament to, one's life, but anyone from dental reps in the dentist business that he had been in for 50 plus years to church family members and friends to his own family. I mean, just a community of folks that just adored this humble, generous, funny, uh, beautiful soul was such a gift to have. Yeah.
So I want to pose a I guess I want to pose 2 questions to you guys. And one would be, how are you doing since Da died? Like, how has this grief impacted your lives? How do you feel like you're navigating it? I know that's a big question. Maybe just, you know, a summary. And then with all of this grief and loss and whatnot happening in our lives, why do you guys want to keep doing the podcast? Like, what is it that has brought us four back together in this capacity as sisters to keep doing this in the middle of the transitions going on in our lives? Beebs, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you for those questions, Maggie. Can you repeat the first one?
The first one was,
How am I doing?
how are you
Yes.
doing? How are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big
Well,
question.
I have this picture right in front of me. I'm at my son's computer and looking at that. I mean, I was not doing well for a couple months. I mean, I'm like barely holding it together, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I think through a lot of my personal experiences, our first podcast on suffering and having endured a lot of suffering, my coping mechanism was just to kind of stay busy and avoid everything and just shut my emotions down. So it had been many, many years of teaching myself not to really demonstrate or show emotions in front of you all or my son or myself. And then I came to realize that that's just not a healthy way to deal with anything. I've tried to lean on some of the coping skills that I've learned in therapy. I do my yoga, my meditation, my prayer, my walks, but there's definitely been this feeling of emptiness and a connection to God and to my spiritual. It's not like I'm angry at God or I question God. I just feel that untethered word really explains. I feel like I've lost my footing. Um, I think Da and I mean, you can all speak. We all have special relationships with Da, but I would come down from Oregon for weeks on end. And during COVID, Khalil and I lived there. And so there were a lot of things that we would do together. And, I would do his feet. I would massage and clip his toenails and bake apple pie and about all these different things that every visit was just with and for Da. And I'm really struggling. I mean, I love coming and seeing you all, but there is a massive just loss. Like, where do I go from here? It's brought up a ton of questions. What do I do with my life? Who am I without Da? Um, at the end of the day, I would always think no matter what, I'll be okay because Da will find a way to make sure that I'm okay. And so it's me learning how to trust and lean on you all and myself, quite frankly. So I'm walking the grief walk, is how I would say I'm doing. And why am I here as this podcast was, kind of birthed from this notion of suffering being an equalizer and what we had all experienced together. And then with Rory's passing, giving us kind of some that initially brought us all together. And now we have Daw's passing that is quite literally bringing us all back together again, because we've all been kind of teetering, I think. So this space is really important for me. I love you all so much, and I've never felt more connected than when I'm with my sisters. And I just refuse to let anything take that away, as hard as it has been and as hard as it might still be. My relationship with each and every one of you is so important. And I think of Da too, how important it was for Da, and just how, yeah, I just want to be here. I want to be here with you all. Yeah.
Well, I can say that after being Da's primary caregiver for that year and a half, it was extremely difficult not having him in the house anymore, because that's what I relied on for my daily everything. So I don't know if I can continue to talk about it or not, and I feel in some ways that I was a little more prepared for the pain than you guys were, because I experienced the loss of my child. So in some ways, because I remember saying after Rory died that nothing would ever hurt me that badly again, because that's the worst thing somebody can go through. So while it's been very painful losing Da, I feel like I was a little more prepared in some way. And my reason to continue podcasting, I did take a couple notes just because you guys know I do better with note taking when I'm doing the podcast. But for me, it's a way to build real community, especially with other women who are walking through grief, faith, motherhood, and life's messier middle chapters. It gives me intentional time with my sisters, not just to talk at each other, but to truly know one another more deeply as we walk through this season together. And it's a place where my story can breathe, where I can speak honestly about losing my son, losing my dog, and what it looks like to keep living, to keep loving Jesus and showing up anyway. Those are my reasons.
So for me, I'm not doing okay either. I think with grief, people initially, there's this support around you and people are there, and then people just aren't there. Life carries on. And I think I described it to you, Bridget, as being a fatherless daughter. It's such a vulnerable feeling to be a fatherless daughter in the world. And at the same time, we were so blessed to have such a beautiful father. But I felt just extremely lonely, very lonely. And that in part is one of my reasons at the same time of doing the podcast, because I feel proud of us that even in our first 2 episodes that we have had the opportunity to even touch some people's lives and bring people together at a time where we're not the only lonely ones. We need each other, not just us, but as women, we need each other to navigate life. And I'm so glad I have you guys to do that with, and I hope that we continue to bring people into the fold with us so we can share these experiences together and not feel so isolated in our suffering. Yeah.
Okay. I guess that leaves me. Mine's going to be very brief. Always say I'm doing okay. I guess with me, it just hits me at moments. Like the other day, I saw a commercial for a girl getting married with her parents walking her down the aisle, and it just took me back when I was 24, getting married, and Ma and Da walking me down the aisle. So I more have triggers like that kind of take me back to a point in time with him. But I too am kind of drawn to just staying busy and distracted. And, it's a busy life, but I think a lot about just the caretaking and how difficult, like Dolly, what you said. I'm applying it to you. I'm speaking to you and Meg and Mom, just when your entire day is just all encompassing of taking care of someone, and then it's like it's gone. It's done. That person's not there. How do you I don't want to say like fill the void, but it's such a drastic change from I experience it just when Bridget has Kale, because when you're caretaking full time and, every aspect of how you plan your day is kind of determined by the person you're taking care of, their schedule, when they need to eat, when, you need to give them a shower, a bath, whatever it is. It's really hard when that goes away and it's a permanent thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine it's really hard being in that space and looking at where Daw's chair used to be, where he used to sit all the time. And, those things aren't there anymore. So, yeah, I think I have my moments, but just one day at a time right now. And I will just say my reasons for wanting to do this is pretty much what you all spoke to, just connection with you all and feeling like we have so many collected life experiences between us that is pretty relatable to a lot of women out there. And it's just great to have an opportunity to be able to share those things.
Thank you all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just leave it at that. Thank you, Da. I feel him, like just want to thank you, Da, for being just an incredible father. And I think of him sitting in his chair watching our first 2 episodes and his little skinny legs kicking up. And I swear he connected seeing our faces on YouTube because he would always watch YouTube. He
Mm-hmm.
made a connection of famous or some type of
Celebrity status.
celebrity that he
He's the
wanted to
father of.
wanted to connect himself to and become the manager
He
of.
wanted to be the
So,
manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep,
He talked all the time about being the manager. He's our manager from heaven.
Yep.
manager from heaven. Yep, we're gonna let him take us home. And thanks for everyone listening because this is a difficult topic. But as you said, Meg and Dolly and Mo, I think connection is the balm for so much of the pain, not only in the world, but in so many of our personal lives. And it would be really easy to just say, no, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And just let it go. This is the harder thing. And I'm really grateful for you all. So thank you so much.
Me too. Thank you all. I love you
Yeah,
all.
I love you too. Meg, where's the heart? Give us the heart, Meg.
Give us the heart.
Take us home, Meg. Yay. All right. Love y'all.
Love you all. Bye-bye.